Viewers, the Trump government has found a new target for a crackdown, and this time it's the H-1B visa system. For long, supporters of the Trump administration have been demanding a stricter H-1B system. And finally, the government in the United States seems to have listened. But is this a decision that was rushed? We're asking you this because the proclamation from the Trump administration did not just send U.S. job aspirants across the world into a tizzy, but it appears to have even confused their own government. Let's put the story in context. First up, here's what was announced from the Oval Office. They have come out to describe the current fee of about $2,000 to $5,000, or about 1.7 lakh rupees to 4.4 lakh rupees, would suddenly be bumped up to $100,000 or 88.09 lakhs, almost a crore there. That's the kind of figures that we're talking about in terms of the revised fee. However, with the decision also came a lot of confusion. Many wondered whether people outside the country will have to rush back before the September 21st deadline. There were even memos that were issued by various companies. There were others who wondered whether it would also apply to existing H-1B holders, as that's what appeared at first. But here's what eventually happened. The initial announcement was that there would be $100,000 a year payment to the government. Later, we saw the White House press secretary clarify the Commerce Secretary's comments at the time of announcement, saying that it's not an annual fee, but a one-time payment. But that wasn't the only clarification that came in. There were other aspects which even have led to, the entire loyal MAGA base turning against Donald Trump. The MAGA base is now questioning the Trump government and asked whether this is another case of a flip-flop from the Trump administration. They've all come out to say that this is not a miscommunication, that Trump has chickened out yet again. Must apply to renewals and transfers, must apply to ones that leave the country and return. Amidst the chaos that we saw through the course of the weekend, many are asking whether this is a government that has actually thought out such important policy decisions that impact on the lives of not just tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands of individuals. The debate on the other side.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Let's take this across to our guest. Joining us is Ambassador Anil Trigunath, former diplomat. Jayant Krishna is a senior fellow, non-resident of the Chair on India and Emerging Asia Economics at the CSIS. We have with us Angie Wong, who's a Miami GOP committee woman. But my first question goes across to Sierra Claire, who's a foreign policy analyst. Sierra Claire, even the most charitable observers will say that there's been a lot of chaos as far as these announcements are concerned. You have the Commerce Secretary saying one thing, you have the White House clarifying another thing as far as whether it's going to be a one-time or an annual fee, who it applies to, the time frame of the application. There's all sorts of misinformation, clarification, or is this just the Trump administration once again beating a hasty retreat, taco, as MAGA activists call it?
I think this is very characteristic of the Trump administration, but I wouldn't characterize it in a bad way. This is often how Trump works. We've seen him do it over and over again, where he will kind of test something in a very extreme way, and he'll see how the markets react, and he'll see how businesses react, and then he'll make adjustments based on those reactions, because what he doesn't want to do is, shock the economy and cause, a cascading effect that would actually end up hurting the American economy. So I think he is trying to be very deliberate about this.
Is this how important policy decisions are made, ma'am? No government does this. You got to test the waters, you got to get feedback, and then you make an announcement. Not make an announcement and then start thinking, hey, what did I just do?
Well, Trump is a very by the seat of his pants kind of guy. And he goes off of his gut. So that's how he's worked in the past.
Well, it's good that he's going by his gut, but the point is that basic homework is what one thinks of. Let me bring in Ambassador Trigunath on that front. Ambassador Trigunath, this is a decision that could have far-reaching consequences for, of course, Indians and Indian industry and U.S. tech industry itself. We're talking about hundreds of thousands. There are about at least 2.5 lakh at the last estimate Indians who are working in the U.S., not just in tech but in different sectors. The point being made over here is that why would you take such an important decision without doing your basic research? Is it just politics? Or does policy cover a lot more in terms of securing US's own national interest, which doesn't seem to have happened here?
Well, Madhav, the first thing I would like to say is as far as visas are concerned, they are a sovereign decision of any country. In this particular case, Indians have been caught in the crosshairs, but the way it has been implemented is nothing new. And as the previous chair was saying, that President Trump, in fact, has changed the way the diplomacy is conducted. He loved earlier diplomacy when he was on Twitter. Now he talks on social, truth social, neither truth nor social. So I think that we continue to have these kind of challenges, exactly how to deal with it. The kind of chaos it caused, that particular order. And I don't know if you were watching when President Trump was looking at his staff and the commentary that was coming from them. It seemed as if first thing, if you see his reaction, yes, we need them. So he was not sure whether it was being cut out completely or not. And then this guy kept on explaining to him that this is what it is. So I think that this is all hit and run kind of policy decisions that are taken. But I was happy to see that they at least corrected the version because that was logical. You can do everything prospectively and not retrospectively. And so that was something good. But now, of course, the MAGA constituency may be feeling a bit cheated in this whole thing, that you wanted to basically punish all the foreigners who have contributed to your growth and your edge, technological edge in the world. So if they want to really cut the nose to spite the face, that's the policy they adopt.
Here's another breaking news coming in. Is this another climb down by the Trump administration? Now there are reports coming in that doctors may be exempt from the H-1B visa regime. This is yet another, question mark coming in as to what really was going on. Who was really thinking about this before making such a big announcement? And let me bring in Angie Wong on this. Angie Wong, this may be the way that Trump functions, but this is not certainly how the head of any government functions globally. You don't just make an announcement and start roll back. What's going on?
I don't know why your headlines are saying that MAGA is unimpressed by this. We love this news. Why should U.S. workers lose their job to foreign workers? It makes no sense. And this $100,000 application fee only to new applicants, not to the existing applicants that are already here, only to the new applicants, that's going to generate 8 to 10 billion U.S. dollars annually for the U.S. It also cuts our reliance on India. We have a lot of geopolitical tension right now. Why would we want any of that? And it also protects our security, our national security here. All these things are great things.
I can go on. Let me just clarify two things because you've got this completely wrong, Angie Wong. Sorry. I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but all we are referring to is a huge amount of commentary on social media, particularly as far as the MAGA is concerned, as far as the rollbacks are concerned. They are not very impressed with that, point number one. And point number two, that's exactly the question. We're talking at a time when the Indian External Affairs Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, is there in the United States. The Commerce Minister is also headed there. Amidst the trade talks and the tensions that we've seen over the last several weeks and months, why would you once again choose to aggravate the situation is a question here in India we're asking.
If that's directed at me, I think, yes, this is all pressure points to further negotiate with India. Yes, President Trump wished PM Modi a happy birthday the other day. He knew that there are tensions, but he's still saying, I still want the best for Americans, and I want to stop the $129 billion leaving my country every single year going to India. That's coming from individuals who are sending money out of the U.S. economy into India's economy. How is any of this fair? I think President Trump is doing a fantastic job making sure that our graduates from the STEM programs, about 600,000 new graduates every year, gets those jobs. Americans get American jobs. And you know what? Google and Meta, they have great campuses in Mumbai.
Angie Wong, I find it rather hypocritical that you actually invite foreign students to study in your universities and then you have a problem when they seek jobs. That's absolutely bizarre.
It's not bizarre at all. You have campuses there in India. We can hire Indian workers all day long. We can.
But that's what you're against.
We need to have H-1B visas. and they don't need to bring all their independents with them. They can stay in India as well. We're a global economy. Why can't we work globally and remotely?
Ma'am, there are so many disjunctions, hypocrisies, ironies in what you just mentioned. But let me bring in some of the other panelists. Jay and Krishna, this is something, the H-1B visa, and of course, as Ambassador Trigunath said, it's every country's own sovereign right to decide who gets a visa and who doesn't. There's no problem with that. But the point is this, that the H-1B visa was often seen, given that about 70% of the recipients or the beneficiaries are Indians, it was seen as a sort of a bridge between India and the United States. Is this just a bargaining tactic? Or does that bridge between India and US, given all that's happened over the last few months, does that have the threat of being burnt?
So, Madhavdas, one thing is very clear. If 70% or 71% of all H-1B visas were being given to Indians, it's not because US loves Indians or US loves India. Just because Indians are so highly educated, so highly skilled, they were meeting the skill deficit which is so rampant in the US all across. And also, Indians, by going there and working there through this visa, were meeting their cost arbitrage requirement. So actually, the presence of such a large number of Indians in the global American companies make them globally competitive, right? So I think it's a pure business decision that so many visas were going to India to Indians. And let me tell you very clearly, as a lot of people are saying that no, it's nailing the coffin of Indian IT industry, especially software industry. That's not going to be the case at all. If you look at most of the Indian IT companies, at least the bigger ones, have invested close to almost $1 billion in the US for recruiting and for upskilling Americans. So a lot of local hiring they are doing. If you look at the companies which have been the biggest beneficiaries of H-1B visa are the likes of Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Meta, and Apple and these kind of companies. And only in that big league, only one Indian company, TCS features, which took almost 5,000 visas last year. So I think, all Indian IT companies and including the global capability centers of tech majors in the US, their dependence on H-1B visa was less than 1/4 of their manpower, So I don't think Indian IT industry will be impacted big time. I don't think, the global capability centers of the Googles and the Microsoft of the world would be impacted big time. But yes, it is a setback to the Indian dream, the American dream, which a lot of Indians, have, and they want to go and work and live and settle down in the US. I think that is definitely a blow to that. And but the American companies are going to be impacted big time. And one good thing which has happened is that this $100,000 worth of clarification, the clarification has come that it will be levied only one time and not every year. So I think I think US has much to worry about.
Okay. Let me bring in Sierra on that. Sierra, who's going to impact? We don't know at the moment. We'll have to see how this all pans out. But we've seen Trump come out to claim that it is the IT firms which have manipulated the system to harm American workers. Are these companies really responsible, or do we believe Elon Musk, who just a few months ago came out to publicly defend the H-1B system as crucial to companies, saying that he would go to war on this issue? He's silent now. But the point is that are these companies now being just scapegoated for looking after their own interest, of course, and the interest of the nation?
Well, I mean, I do think that all of these companies, it became abused, and it started out as something that was necessary, and some of it, may still be necessary, which is why Trump isn't shutting it down completely and he's leaving that door open. But it became to a point where it was being abused by these companies because they were undercutting American wages. And, they were relying on foreign labor to undercut American wages. And so Trump, he wanted to put a stop to that, but he wants to do it in a responsible way to where there's time for everyone to adjust. But it definitely was something that was driven by these companies who, unfortunately they saw an opportunity and they took it way too far, and they took advantage of it because that was never the original purpose of the program.
Okay. Let me bring in Ambassador Trigunath. Ambassador Trigunath, there is also a point of view that says that this is perhaps a great opportunity for India. If there are going to be a lot of skilled professionals who are not going to be working in the United States, then perhaps they're going to come back, they're going to look at alternative options. is this an opportunity that India can really use? We've seen similar sort of argument happen when the tariffs were imposed, but is this feasible? Is this something that's really practical?
Well, I think if it is not, then we should try to work on it in an overdrive. We have to create the kind of ecosystem that is required to absorb all this talent. Let me tell you, right now the Japanese are calling Indians, the Germans are calling, the Italians, anybody I have talked to, they are looking for Indians to come there in a big way. Even the Chinese, for that matter, they've started some K visa or whatever. So the whole world is wanting these kind of people who have been highly qualified, and they have really helped a great deal making United States as a MAGA what they want to think about. Of course, it will be a loss of the Americans. Nobody wants anybody to lose the jobs. But at the same time, I'm sure our American friends do understand that 2.11 million people, youngsters, drop out of schools every year in the United States. 1.2 million, those who join the university or the colleges the first year, drop out. In any technical college or technical place you go to, 60 to 70% are foreigners who are studying there in the technical colleges. So the problem is this is something. United States is a country of immigrants, and immigrants have made the country the great. And if they think that this is going to be against them, there are many other choices. Now, India is on its own rise. So I think that India and the government has to be really mindful of how to engage them. Since we are working now on the self-reliance or the Atmanirbhar, the campaign that is going on, I'm quite sure that it is possible to absorb them, but it will take short time.
Anji Wong, the writings on the wall, that if the United States does take or does engage in this kind of a misadventure, it's going to be America's loss, because there are several countries from Europe to Asia who have been courting Indian workers, especially those who are highly skilled. They're obviously in demand globally.
Yeah, and you know, good for everyone. I think the world should have lots of talent spread around, not just Americans. We want to grow our own talent base here. We want to make sure that our own Americans have jobs coming out of colleges, right? That they're not just automatically given to foreign workers. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we could all learn from each other. And as I mentioned before, a lot of our tech companies have campuses in India, and we are hiring. That is not going away. Look, I think it's just a new evolution in the tech world and in a lot of the way we work together. I don't think we want to cut off Indian talent altogether, but we do have to provide jobs for our own Americans.
No, but outsourcing is something that Trump is against as well. These campuses that you're talking about is what Trump doesn't want. He doesn't want Apple to set up factories in India. He doesn't want anyone to, actually be functioning out of another geographical location. So how does that work, Anji Wong?
But so Google and Meta and everyone else already has campuses in India and in China, and and those are just companies working. I mean, we are a global society there. It's not that
Google
Trump doesn't
allowed
want
in
to
China.
have campuses there. It's already happening. It's been happening for decades.
All right, let's leave it there. Ambassador Anil Trigunath, Jayant Krishna, Sierra Claire, Anji Wong. I want to thank all of you for joining us on this debate. Another set of chaotic decisions coming out of the United States. What will happen finally on this remains to be seen. And is the fate of this decision also going to be tied up with the trade talks and negotiations? That's something that we're going to have to watch out for. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.
The News Hour